Taking down India's freedom fighters is in fashion nowadays. What used to be whisper campaigns before 2014 have become vocal hate campaigns by neo-patriots facilitated by the social and Godi media. We have had the likes of Pragya Singh and sundry Saffronites hailing Godse and belittling the contributions of genuine freedom fighters. The likes of Kangana Ranaut have taken it to the next level by declaring the 1947 freedom as British charity to beggars, while actual independence was achieved in 2014. That's what she claims. This attack on freedom fighters in general and Mahatma Gandhi in particular has an unholy agenda worked out by villainous minds. The Godse worshippers have done everything to defame Gandhiji. Little do they understand the greatness of the man who wrested independence from the most powerful colonial power of the time. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was that rare human being who documented his remorseless struggles with the failings, drawbacks, and prejudices in his characters. He did not hesitate. He had that kind of courage to admit his failings, to admit his failures, and actually document it in the form of book. If you have read my experiments with truth, you will know what I'm talking about. He succeeded in overcoming them because he was doing it to cater to his conscience and not any vote bank. He was not our nowadays Neta type. He was a genuine leader of the masses. And he knew that if he has to lead others, he will have to improve himself first, his own character first. He never shunned truth, but actually sought it. Thus, he became the Mahatma who dealt with the challenges thrown up by life and shunned the temptations that would have led a lesser mortal astray. I'm talking about the temptations. He worked with, among, and for the people, personifying the archetypical Karma Yogi described in the Bhagavad Gita. If you have read Bhagavad Gita, you will know what actual Karma Yogi is. He overcame hate and fear and battled non-violently for justice, equality, and fraternity. He wanted to really break down all the social uh, taboos as well as social divisions. Consequently, he liberated the second most populous nation in the world, an achievement that inspired enslaved humanity to break its shackles. We owe our independence to the countless freedom fighters who sacrificed their all for the cause, even when they knew they would not be able to enjoy the fruits of freedom themselves. They didn't fight for power or pelf, but for restoring the average Indian's dignity, freedom, and esteem. Each one of them was, directly or indirectly, inspired by Mahatma Gandhi. So, we owe our freedom to Gandhiji, but to what do we owe his status as the foremost among India's freedom fighters? To Africa, of course, more specifically South Africa, because that is where he first locked horns with the racist white regime and earned his spurs. Gandhiji went to South Africa in 1893 as a young barrister on a short-term commercial assignment. Within a few days, he experienced many acts of racial humiliation, including the well-known incident when he was thrown out of the first-class train compartment at Pietermaritzburg railway station because of his skin's color. Gandhiji remained in South Africa for 21 years. In 1913, he had struggled for 8 years at a stretch to win certain just rights for Indian workers over there. According to him, the foundation of the struggle was laid in Johannesburg in 1906. The issue concerned only the Registration Act in the beginning. The government refused to listen to the protests, triggering jail-going movement. While the struggle had not yet ended, the Immigration Act was passed. The movement had to be extended to cover the effect of the Migration Act on the Registration Act. The protesters demanded that there should be no racial discrimination in the Immigration Act, which was there already. The struggle was prolonged and a deputation went to England in 1909. The Union government, however, refused to remove the racial discrimination, the Union government of South Africa. While the struggle was thus being prolonged, the Satyagrahis demanded that the existing rights of Indians in all parts of the Union should be left untouched. There was no decision, however, until 1913. While preparations were on to resume the satyagraha, a fresh grievance came to light which worked as a catalyst for the satyagrahis. The Cape Supreme Court in March 1913 ruled that all marriages not performed according to Christian rites were illegal. That is, most Indian marriages were invalid. That made the children illegitimate and deprived them of inheritance. This is typical of the British strategy everywhere. Even in India, they usurped many princely states in this manner. Of course, they did not bring in the Christian aspect. Naturally, Indians in South Africa were deeply agitated. At the same time, the authorities in Natal began to prosecute those Indians in criminal courts who could not pay the annual tax of £3 each. By 1913, the movement had reached a crisis point and drew attention in both the local and international press. As a result of the strikes, the Solomon Commission was appointed to look into the cause of the disturbances. The findings of the commission led to the passing of the Indian Relief Act, which made provisions for the abolishment of the £3 tax, legislation of marriages conducted according to Indian rights, the relaxation of the immigration laws, and all registers were to be all resistors, those who resisted, were to be pardoned. So on June 26, 1914, the enactment of the Indian Relief Bill ended a struggle of 8 years duration. The act was considered as mutually satisfactory and an honorable settlement of the problems raised by the passive resistance movement. Gandhiji had won, finally and definitely. On July 18, 1914, Gandhiji sailed for England on his return journey to India. We know what happened next. On January 28, 1948, 2 days before he was assassinated by Godse, he told a prayer meeting in New Delhi, and I quote him, "I have myself lived in South Africa for 20 years and I can therefore say that it is my country." Unquote. Gandhiji was born in India but made in South Africa. Yes, he became Mahatma over there. The South African experience left a deep and lasting impression on Gandhiji and influenced the Indian national movement that he was to lead. As he began to lead local and then national struggles in India, Gandhiji also recalled his South African experiences as a frame of reference for the direction of the struggle in India. In South Africa, Gandhiji became convinced of the invincibility of the non-violent resistance to evil, if properly directed. He developed strong convictions on the need for the elimination of untouchability, Hindu-Muslim unity, national language, prohibition, respect for manual labor, promotion of spinning and cottage industries, etc. Not all of these are relevant today. Some of these, like for example, promotion of spinning, that for that time, that period, it was essential because it was not just an economic symbol, it was also a political and social symbol. The spinning wheel, it united people in so many ways that we cannot actually understand the depth of what Gandhiji was doing through that. Yes, just imagine households throughout the country, several 100,000 households, they resorted to spinning the wheel. And that was the sort of social cohesion he brought in through such symbolisms. He had encouraged the participation of women in the last decisive phase of the struggle in 1913 in South Africa, and was gratified by the way they had conducted themselves and inspired others. He was so impressed by the heroism of the poor workers that he said in London on August 8, 1914, "These men and women are the salt of India. On them will be built the Indian nation that is to be." For over a decade, he prepared numerous petitions and memoranda, led deputations to the authorities, wrote letters to the press, and tried to promote public understanding and support in South Africa as well as in India and Britain for the cause of the Indians in South Africa. His professional practice also came to be largely devoted to the same cause. At the same time, Gandhiji had faith in the fairness of the British and in imperial principles. But it became, and this is a big but, because Gandhiji realized that uh, British were not really all that fair as he had thought. But it became clear by 1906 that appeals and petitions had proved ineffective and promises had been betrayed. Satyagraha followed and the truth would prevail. Gandhiji wrote in Young India, a publication which he edited, uh, and that was on April 20, 1921, and I quote him: "The whole community rose like a surging wave. Without organization, without propaganda, all that is nearly 40,000 people quoted imprisonment. Nearly 10,000 were actually imprisoned. A bloodless revolution was effected after strenuous discipline in self-suffering. Several workers were killed, but the strikers remained firm and disciplined. Equally significant, they did not deviate from nonviolence. Public opinion all over India was aroused. The Viceroy, Lord Hardinge, expressed sympathy with the Satyagrahis. The Indian and British governments intervened, and the South African government was forced to negotiate. The Satyagraha ended with the Spurs-Gandhi Agreement of June 30, 1914, under which all the demands of the Satyagraha were conceded. The concept of Satyagraha would provide the template for many more political struggles, beginning with India and led again by Gandhiji. In a letter to Indians in South Africa, which he wrote on the eve of his departure from that country and signed the community's indentured laborer, Gandhiji said, and I quote him, "Though I am leaving for the motherland, I am not likely to forget South Africa. I should like friends who may have occasion to go to India to come and see me there. I do intend, of course, to work in India regarding the disabilities here. He kept the promise. Today, the worshippers of cowards, collaborators, and toadies of the colonialists need to be reminded that Gandhiji conquered fear and defied the racist regime in South Africa and an imperialist Britain. He went to prison 5 times in South Africa and 9 times in India during his struggle against racism and colonialism. He was incorruptible and forsook consumerism, which had become a menace to progress. He espoused the dignity of labor and the need to protect the environment. He became a symbol of peace and non-violence, and his appeal is universal. And we have seen this even today when attempts were being made to replace Gandhiji with Godse of all the people, how the world reacted, how our Prime Minister was reminded again and again about the greatness of Mahatma Gandhi. Mahatma Gandhi was, is, and will always be the father of Indian nation. Thanks for being with me today. I hope to come back with another edition soon. Bye.